I failed my first year in university. I failed so badly I was afraid to go home. But what that does is, I think when you fail at an epic level, it helps you because you now know what it feels like to fail and you no longer want to feel that way.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Conversation with Nadine Matheson. As always, I hope that you're well and I hope that you've had a good week. And I sincerely hope that you've had a good week because, well, last week for some of us, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I'm not going to go into it, but I hope that you are looking after yourselves, you're being kind to yourselves, and also that you're having fun. I think when you've had an intense week, the most important thing is to take a step back and indulge in the things that give you joy, because that's definitely what I was doing. I was indulging in the things that give me joy. So I had a complete news detox. I read, I watched bad TV, I watched good TV, I watched movies, I caught up on my Netflix watch list, and I'm just going to continue doing that for as long as possible. But what I've also been doing is producing episodes of my new podcast. Yes, you heard that right. I have a new podcast. But this podcast, which is called The Pivot, is exclusive to my Substack subscribers. And it's a little bit different. And when I say it's different, it really is different. It's got different theme tune. It's got different content. Anyway, enough of me talking about it. Here's a brief clip. Hello and welcome to The Pivot with Nadine Matheson. As I like to say in my other podcast, The Conversation with Nadine Matheson, I hope that you're well and I hope that you've had a good week. Now, if you followed me from The Conversation, then you need to know that The Pivot is completely different. I'm not in conversation with anyone. It's just me. I mean, that may change in the future, but for now, it's just me. I'm not in conversation with authors. And The Pivot is very similar to my Substack newsletter, where I give my thoughts, my musings on culture, publishing, writing, basically anything that grabs my attention. So I hope that you continue to join me on The Pivot. And The Pivot is special also because it's only available to my paid subscribers. So you are a special group of people who are privy to my internal thoughts. Now back to this week's episode of The Conversation. But before we start, if you're listening to this week's episode on Apple Podcasts, then you will notice that if you click on the conversation icon, that the conversation is actually part of the Nadine Matheson channel. And that there are two shows on the Nadine Matheson channel, The Conversation and yes, The Pivot. So if you're not subscribing to my Substack, you can subscribe to The Pivot via Apple Podcast. And there's a 7-day free trial, so you can give it a go, see if you like it, and hopefully you'll stick around. And just one more thing. A big thank you to everyone who's supporting the podcast and me by buying me a cup of coffee or a cup of tea on Ko-fi. And if you go to my Ko-fi page, you will see that my store is now open. And on my Ko-fi store, not only can you buy signed copies of all my books, you can also buy the Conversation merchandise and a digital planner for writers. Now, if you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee or buy a signed copy of one of my books for one of your friends, family, you know, Christmas is coming up, then all you need to do is go down to the show notes and you will see the links. Now, finally, once and for all, let's get on with the show. This week, I'm in conversation with author and actress Damilare Kuku. And in our conversation, we talk about using writing to offload personal burdens, how happiness is a house filled with books, and being dragged online before your book is even released. Now, as always, sit back, we'll go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Damilare Kuku, welcome to The Conversation.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Right, my first question is for you is this is in regards to your novel. Okay, so only big, it always makes me laugh when I say, but only big bumbum matters tomorrow, right? That's your novel. The only reason why it makes me laugh is because that's what we would say when we were younger. Like your parent, like, or say your parents, like, look at a bum bum. Just She's just your farm. But when you finished your novel, and when you knew it was going to be in readers' hands, what did you want your readers to feel when they closed the last page on your book?
I did. So the thing is, I wasn't particularly looking for a feeling for readers. I just wanted them to wear the shoes of the characters, and maybe just see that this is where we are at as a society. That's it. I wasn't trying to look. You know how writers be like, oh, this. I hope that we learn to be kinder to one another. Each time you pick up a book of mine, you realize, okay, there's probably more to life than what I had assumed, and maybe I shouldn't be so quick to judge people. But other than that, I just wanted them to wear the shoes of the characters and see whether there's some of them they can identify with, whether some of them are like those characters as well. And just, I don't know, just that's it. I wasn't looking for a particular feeling. Perhaps the only feeling I was looking for was for the characters, was for Témì and Lado. This feeling of maybe with Témì, it's like you are not, it's all in your head. Maybe when you're reading somebody else's story, you realize, okay, so it's all in my head. Maybe I am actually pretty enough, or I'm good looking enough. Somebody loves me. Maybe there's this guy I've been ignoring who actually thinks I'm really good. And maybe there's just, the world is bigger. And when best friends feel you, somebody else will not, So maybe Témì and Ladun, but nothing else. I wasn't really looking for a feeling, but just to be kind. Yeah. So that's it.
What did you want? So what did you want for yourself, though? It's what I say. It's one thing what you want the readers, but what did you want for yourself when you was writing it?
I wanted to offload. So most times when I'm writing, I'm looking to just let go of a burden I've carried for a while. And I can't, and it just, when you express yourself, I think when you have too much anger and too much pain in you, it shows even in your body, the way you are. Sometimes the pain can slouch you, the pain can make you fatter because there's so much feelings can fill you up like food. So what I try to do with experiences, and gratefully so that I'm able to do it with the career path as a writer, is that I offload what I'm feeling in my books. And they're never about me, by the way. I don't write about myself. But what I do is I write about people that I know and how their experiences make me feel and how I hope they feel when they pick up the book. I've always known I think when I was like, I've always loved writing. I loved reading. Actually, I love reading more than I love writing. If you want to make me happy, put me in a house full of books and lock me up. I'm very fine. I'm happier when I'm reading. So I've always been fascinated by books. I grew up reading the Bible, reading any blighting African literature, some Western literature as well, plays. So I've always been fascinated by writing and by the fact that books can draw me into their world. And then when I was like 7, 8, I wrote on a paper what I wanted to be. I put, creator, actor, writer. I wrote everything because as a child, you're not limited. There's no reality.
No.
Nothing. Reality has not slapped you in your face. So I put everything that I wanted to be down, and I was like, I would like to be this. I like to be that. And then I asked God. I said, it would be nice if you let these things come to pass. And then I just put it aside. So 2021 came. So I started writing a little bit. I took some writing classes, but never really seriously. But then COVID came, everything shut down. COVID came and everything just screeched to an halt. And I wrote a book. I finished writing it and I sent it to all the publishers, trying to force them to just publish me. I kept being on their neck. Hi, I have this book. So finally somebody responded and they said, oh, hi, your book has potential. Would like to meet with you. So I went in and met with them. Now, when I met with them, I started writing Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. But it wasn't finished. I just had one story, right?
Hold on a second. I'm going to stop you just for a second. So prior to this, right? So we've gone from you just love reading, and you write your letter to God when you're a child, saying this is what I want to do, and then you forget about it. Then we have this big, massive gap then we get to COVID. And then you decide, because COVID, I think COVID just put a magnifying glass on everything that you wanted to do or didn't want to do, or who you was living with, who you loved, who you didn't love. It just put a magnifying glass on everything.
Yeah.
But before you even got there, what were you doing?
I was acting, I was producing,
Oh, you were?
I was directing, but I was not doing anything book-wise. I wasn't even, I had written one horrible screenplay many years ago that I never went anywhere. Like I wasn't, I just thought, writing is such a, I don't know how to say this, it's such a special art. So I just knew I had written to God I wanted to do this thing. And I had forgotten about it. That's the thing about telling God your dreams. He doesn't forget. You can. I moved on. I was trying to do something else with myself, and I was fine doing other things. But I think God just realized that he needed to help me, because writing saved me. I always tell people that if there's anything that has saved me so far, aside from God, is writing. Writing has saved me. And that's God's gift to me, because never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I was going to be this successful as a writer. Never. Yeah. Just so we're clear, didn't think about it, didn't imagine it, didn't imagine that it was going to happen like this, didn't think Nearly Old Men, Lagos and Mad was going to be such a huge hit internationally, did not even imagine that Bumbum second book was going to be so good, like it was going to hit as well. I just thought, I don't know. I wasn't thinking about it. I just know I told God about something when I was a child and I moved on from it. So that's how I got into writing, because Nearly Old Men, Lagos and Mad was signed on the spot. Literally, I was offered a publishing contract on the spot, and I said, I had not even written more than one story. So they attached me to Chimeka Garrix, who is also a very brilliant writer. And then once they attached me to Chimeka, I started to write. And I remember Chimeka said, he wrote on his book, he signed a copy of his book for me and said, I look forward to getting autographed copies of your books. In my head, I said, what are these people talking about? Like, where are these people thinking I'm going to get to as a writer? I was cooking okra in my kitchen. I'm like, guys, I'm trying to eat okra. Just mind my business, man. Like, I'm not on this. But sorry?
There's beauty in those moments, because I've got a copy of a book. I think it was Rachel Edwards, and she signed my book for me, and I think she wrote, she'd write in it, I'm looking forward to reading your work, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see. Like, you don't take it seriously, because you can't see that. Like, your vision kind of has parameters for yourself. Like, you know what you want. And you know how, in a sense, how you may want your life to be. But that's it. You can't see past the vision, past the initial idea.
I'm even different from you in that aspect. I don't see where I want my life to be. I live my life one day at a time. I don't have a plan. Like, I'm not one of those people that you know how you want to finish school, people are like, what's your plan? They're like, I have this plan to be this. No, I was like, okay, my plan tomorrow is to buy this food I saw online, maybe, and then pray. Like, I don't have even as of this moment, I don't have a plan. But what I now have, which I rest in, is God. I literally just wake up, I'm like, God is going to take control of today. However this day turns out, that's God's business. So I didn't imagine that writing was going to become, to be clear, like, I didn't think Bumbum. It went viral. It sold out in a day in Nigeria. These are things they blow up. Like, it sold out a day in Ghana, sold out a day in Nigeria. Is literally a top seller in South Africa. I'm pretty sure it's doing well in UK. And I'm like, okay, all right. Okay, thank you, God.
We're going to thank God, because you have to. But what did you think was going to happen?
Are you joking? We're not going to thank God because we have to. We're going to thank God because it's actually the essential. Because what I did was,
I know, but I'm saying, what did you think was going to happen once you signed with the publisher and they're asking for more stories? Did you not envisage anything beyond that?
No. Okay, so let me tell you, when Nearly Old Men, Lagos and Mad came out and it became a hit, I didn't know as well. I remember my publisher just saying to me, my former publisher saying to me that, by the way, the book, the pre-order has sold out. I said, what's pre-order? I'm like, it's like, oh, something where they pray. I said, okay, great, that's nice. Like, oh, thank God. Oh, that's good for you guys because that means you're making your money and all of that. And then, it came out and started, everyone knew what it was. I would go somewhere and everybody knew who I was. I'm like, okay. And I'm taking it in gulps, but I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But I remember that before Nearly All the Men Lagos Amad came out, I said to God one night, just randomly, because again, I didn't have any limitation in my mind. I said, surprise me with this book. And I'm telling you, that's all it's been doing. This book has continued to surprise me every year. Then with Bumbum, I'm like, okay, God, since you surprised me with Nearly All the Men Lagos Amad, surprise me as well with Only Big Bumbum Matters tomorrow. And he's been doing that, but I didn't have a plan. I'm just learning now that you have to do this. The things that most of the time I'm learning on the go with my writer friends are the ones that tell me, oh, this is where I'm like, oh, okay, is this a thing? So I didn't have a plan, and I still don't have a plan. That's why when people interview me and they're like, oh, what's your secret? What's the secret? I'm like, it's God, because that's all I have done. Nobody else has helped me. Nobody there has been there for me. All I've had from the beginning of this journey and all I will continue to have is God. So I'm not going to be dancing around and be telling you, this is the secret. Go and sit down somewhere. My only secret is God. My only help is God. My only support is God. And God is all I'm about. Period.
All right. I'm going to ask you a question though. But didn't you ever feel a sense of unease about not knowing how it all worked? About not knowing about pre-orders or the next step in publishing? Because I said it's a whole different experience from writing your book, writing your short stories, and then submitting them. And then before you even get to it's on the shelves and being sold, going through that whole process. And I said, we all learn. We all learn on the go. Unless you already work in publishing, you as a writer, you're just learning as you go. But then you ever get a sense of unease when you're experience all these things and they're not even just new, they're just completely alien to you?
So what I have now is, so with Nearly All the Men Lagos Amad, I learned some things. And so by the time I was going into Bumbum, I carried those things I learned. With Bumbum, I've learned a couple of things too, which I will be carrying into the next book. But in terms of unease, of course you're nervous. I have to learn to talk with you guys, like to speak with press, to do interviews. It took a whole I remember that the first interview I had, I was freaking out because I was like, why are people asking me all these questions? And Chimeka said to me, this is what it's part of being promoting a book. Like I have been an actor and I've promoted films, but with writing is a completely different thing. They're not mutually, they're different parts completely, and people are asking you and throwing things at you that you didn't even expect. So the only time, anytime I feel uneasy and which happens a lot, is I literally say to God, the Bible says there's a part that says, be anxious for nothing, but bring everything to God in prayers. So I would, sometimes when I can't pray, I sleep, and people don't understand how much I love sleeping. So when I'm not working, if I'm on book tour, you know how people are always like, oh, come out for something, hang out. I'm like, can I just go to sleep? Like, I'm not I know you're laughing. Most times when I'm in my hotel room, I'm sleeping. So if I'm not praying, I'm sleeping. If I'm not sleeping, I'm eating, because I also really like food. Like, I like trying new things. So I don't even think I'm like the picture of what people expect for at the best of a successful writer. I think people expect that when they meet me, they think I'm going to be this babe that will be like telling them, oh, so no, really, it's not.
Well, the thing is, we don't have, I think just because you have a book published doesn't mean you have all the answers. As I said, you are constantly learning. It's with each book, with each cycle through this whole publishing road that we go on.
I know you are.
You are learning. That's why I said, yeah.
And how has that journey been for you? How has that journey been for you as a writer?
As a writer, as I said, you're always learning something new. It's so unlike anything else I've ever worked in. I've said it before in previous interviews. I feel like there are rules, but the rules are always in a state of flux. They're always changing. So my experience with book one is not the same as my experience with book two, or my experience with book three, or even with the book that I'm writing now. So my experience is always changing, and you just have to you grow with that and also learn to adapt. But also you have to recognize as well, and I think that's always going to be the key, just from my experience, the way I see it, is that you have to recognize that your journey is not going to be same as your neighbors in publishing's journey. You're going to have two completely different experiences. There's two different completely different journeys. And I think once you accept that, it makes the road you have to travel makes it a lot less more potholed. That's the best way I can pull it. But how did how did your family respond to your success?
I think they're just really so. I was still telling my mom, I think last week, I was like, you guys don't understand that. You guys know I'm Damilare Kuku. My mom's like, please, can you go and get me that? Please go and do the errand I sent you, my friend. Like, who cares about? No, they're very happy. My dad is very proud of me. My dad is a professor, so he's very happy. He's always like, oh, when my book comes out, he wants to write a review. He keeps saying he's rating like 2 reviews I have not gotten for nearly old men niggas are mad and only big bumbum matters tomorrow. My mom is she's so like, my mom can just be in a place now. She's just like, oh, that's my daughter. She's a writer. I'm like, okay. So they're and my sisters are very supportive as well. But I come from a pretty grounded family. So it's not, we all kind of ground each other out, and we love on each other, but there's nothing like, oh, just because they celebrate my success, they're very happy for me, but they also want me to be aware that it could have been anybody else, right? So that you are the person that it is, it's just because God chose you, and it's not that it could be anybody else. I always tell people that this thing is, I guess God just found the one person that was sleeping in our room. I'm not even joking. I think that like the angel that was passing was like, okay, so who is the person that is like always like chilled and sleeping in our room? Oh yeah, that Damilare girl that when she's not working, let's help her. So I'm pretty. My family they're very accepting and they celebrate me, but they also could care less at some point. I don't know.
No, it does. Do you think though, having that attitude of, and it sounds really offensive when I say it that way, but I don't mean it that way. But just having that attitude of you're literally just taking it day by day, just putting your faith in God and just let God carry you. But you take it day by day and see what the world brings you. Do you think having that mindset, that's a better word, having that mindset helped you with rejection? Because before someone said yes, a lot of people would have said no.
So I'm an actor. I'm also an actor. So rejection is our second skin to us. So I don't know what this thing you are talking about. Actors get rejected from the first day. So I don't know why we discuss rejection like it's some sort of sacred thing.
You know why? Because some people never, they can go through their whole lives and they never experience rejection. And that could be personal rejection or rejection in terms of they might have failed an exam. Like they literally go through long extended periods of their life where that doesn't happen. And everything is just, I say, set out for them. All the dominoes are lined up perfectly, but then they move to do something different. And writing's always a good example of this. Now you want to do something different. You want to become a writer. You just think, well, I'm just going to write my book. I'm going to write my poems. I'm going to do whatever. And I'm going to submit it and it will be accepted. And it's in that moment, that's the first time they experience rejection. So there's some people, they just never, it's never been a thing for them. And then when it's a thing, they're forced to reevaluate everything about themselves. But then, as you said, as being an actor, that's just part of the course.
I'm uncomfortable maybe because I'm so used to the reason why I remember. How do I say this? So there was a particular project I wanted desperately. I wanted so desperately to play the lead, and but I got to the audition and I flunked. Like I failed. I forgot my lines. I wasn't great. And I remember going to my house that day and I was crying and my eyes were bawling. And I told my manager at that point, who's a friend but no longer my manager, I'm not going to act anymore. My life is over. And I had this producer friend who is also still a friend, but because I've been writing more than acting, I'm no longer in touch with that community as much as I'd like to be. So he called me and said, there are people that wake up, like you just said, and immediately they
Mm,
become stars. But because they
mm.
became stars immediately, they don't have that. There's a void missing because they didn't travel that journey.
Yeah.
He said, Damilare, the one thing that is sure for me is that you are going to be a star. You are going to be successful. I don't ever miss it. He said to me, and I remember that he said, there's no one I've ever said will be successful that has failed. Said, so
Mm,
I saw you from day one and I knew this. But is your journey going to be different from other people? Yes.
yeah.
So and then I ended up getting a small part in the show. He said to me, show up, do your best, deliver, and then take it as part of the journey. And I remember that day, something clicked in me that and of course, I've had my mom and my parents always tell me that the world is not about. I failed my first year in university. I failed so badly, I was afraid to go home. But what that does is, I think when you fail at an epic level, it helps you because you now know what it feels like to fail and you no
Mm,
longer want to feel that way. So what had happened was I now said to myself, whether it is a small part in a film, I'm going to do my best to always show up and be exceptional. You won't forget me in that thing. So that the next time you see me, you're like, oh, I remember I saw you in that part. It was a small part, but it was great. So that part, that acting prepared me so much with the rejection that I grew. By the time I started to play leads with Netflix, I wasn't, the way people will come into it and they're like, oh my God, I was so pretty grounded. Like you come on set, I'm like, who's playing lead? And it's Damilare. And everyone's like, oh, why are you so grounded? It's because if you failed and you've gone through everything life teaches you and you learn those lessons, what happens is by the time you start to succeed, where your headspace is in a good place. So that's why I'm
mm.
telling you that I could be in my room sleeping and I'm in Russia, and maybe I just collected an award downstairs, and I'm like, thank you so much. So, all right, like my friends know where to find me. I'm in my room, I'm sleeping. Like if I'm not
You've gone
sleeping,
to
I'm
bed.
trying to. Oh, my sister has called me that I asked you to go and get something for me, and I'm okay. Yes, I'll go. But like I'm so because life has so grounded me. I think it's important that happens to you.
I
I
agree.
know some people don't have that though. Some people don't go through that. That's okay because their journey is different. But what happens is when life grounds you, when it puts you in a place where you're supposed to be with your level-headed situation, half of the time what happens is you realize that it could be anybody else. So I'm going to work extra hard to ensure that I succeed at this. And when the success comes, I'm going to thank everybody who has helped my journey, and not just think it's I woke up one day and I became this successful person.
Listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. No, I'm a firm believer, and I'm saying this from experience. I believe that there's not one person who won't benefit from failure. Because what failure forces you to do, it forces you to pivot. You have
Yeah.
to pivot. You have to reassess things. And what you're reassessing, it's not whether this is the right decision for you, whether it's to take that job or to go on that course to go, but it's to reassess who you are as a person and actually think about, what is it that I really, really, really want? And do I really, really want this? Because sometimes we're fighting for things. We're fighting to, get the job, get the relationship, do all these things. And then you get there. It's like Kira Abdullah, she always says, and it always sticks my head. She goes, you get there and you realize there's no there at that point. But then if you have that failure, it's a pause. It's not the end, it's just a pause. So you pause, you like, oh, well, crap, what am I going to do now? Reassess things. And then you'll either push and be like, no, I really, really want this thing. And now you're going to fight harder to get there. Or you're like, you know what, maybe I didn't even want this in the first place. Let me look elsewhere. So I never think failure's a bad thing, ever.
I agree.
So what surprised you most, Damilare, about the publishing industry? So now you're in it. What surprised you most about publishing?
What surprised me most? I think, oh wow. Let me think deeply. I feel like the most surprising part of it for me right now is the whole process of um getting the book to the finish line. People don't understand the amount of work that goes into. I think they understand. Only writers understand the amount of work. That's why when you see writers say, "My book is finally at the shelf," we're not just saying, "Oh, my dream of being a writer has been
No, it's
accomplished."
like
It's like,
finally, you have no
fine.
idea. Finally,
I
you
don't
have
have to
no
open
idea
my
what I've been
email.
through.
I don't have to open my email and be like, "What am I going to get today in the mail, Lord?" So that part surprised me because it is. That's why I understand when books are adapted to film, why fans get upset when you don't stick to what is the source material. Because first of all, the writer, and not just the writer, the editors, they go through a lot, the agent, they go through a lot to ensure that the book comes out that way. Then you want to go adapt it for film and you go off or you don't do it well. So it's a lot of work. So that part was very surprising. I love hard work. I think hard work is essential, but I didn't just imagine that it was going to be that. So that would always surprise me, just so we're clear. Every single time I'm gonna be like, wow, we're here again. But yeah, so
Did the collaborative nature of publishing, of writing your book, did that surprise you at all? Because we spend so much time on our own, unless you know you have a writing partnership with someone. Because there are loads of authors, books out there where there are two authors, but 95% of the time, it's you, it's one writer, it's a sole job, and it's just you, your laptop, your notebook, whatever, and it's just that position for so long, and then all of a sudden editors are involved and copy editors are involved and proofreaders are involved and then cover artists are involved and everyone and their dog is involved. Did that surprise you when you got to that point?
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it did. It surprised me because I did not in a bad way. It's just like, oh,
Mm,
there's more. There is more. Oh, there is more. It's like just when you think you're done, there's something else comes up. You just open an
yeah.
email and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, there's also this part. I'm like, oh, okay. So more work. Got it. So that part. But yeah, other than that, I mean, again, I come from acting. We work a lot in acting. You can stay 17 hours on your feet in a project. So I guess, but it never surprises me. It never seems to surprise me when you just realize, oh, there's also another part to it that I'm not learning. And I'm sure there are authors that maybe theirs is quite succinct, but
Mm.
I don't have that experience. It's a much longer process for me.
When you were saying, you think you're done and the other email comes along, it just, all I had in my head was Al Pacino in The Godfather 3, when he says, just when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in. And that's what it's like with writing. You're like, I am
Yeah.
done. I finished this. Like, I'm writing this draft of this book. Like, I'm finishing it because I've got to deliver it in a couple of weeks. And I'm writing it. But it's like every time I move on to the next chapter, I think to myself, I know this isn't done. This is not going to be, it's not finalized. It's not perfect. This is not what's going to go to press. I know I'm going to get my edits back at some point, and then they'll go back, and then I'm going to get another round of edits. So I might get maybe 2 big structural edits before I even get to the line edits. So I'm writing this book, but in the back of my head, I know this is not done. And I don't know, but again, I don't know whether that gives you freedom in the sense of just getting the book done, or whether it can put you in a state of panic, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it just depends on your personality.
Yeah, it does. And honestly, when it stresses me out too much, I just drop stuff and check out for a bit. I can check out for like maybe
I
like three,
think,
four
yeah,
days.
I
Even
think
if
I
I
gathered
have
that.
a deadline, I'm like I'm checked out for. I'm mentally not here for the next 4 or 5 days, and that's just how I am. I check out and then I come back and I'm like, okay, let's go again. So yeah.
See, I can't check out like that. If I go to sleep during the day, it's 2 things. It will be, well, one thing mainly. If I go to sleep in the middle of the day, it's because I'm sick. Because I'm not someone who naps. Like, I have a friend, she's like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm like, I'm so jealous you can go and nap. But then if I'm really stressed,
Mm-hmm.
I go to bed. I'm like, fine, I'm shutting out the world. I'm going to bed. But it won't be in the middle of the day. It will just be, I'm just going to bed early, like 8
Oh
o'clock.
no.
I'm done. But that's if I feel stressed. But I can't do
No,
the whole
I'm gonna.
shut out for 4 days.
No, I'm gonna. No. I'm not sleeping for the 4 days. I'm gonna do other things. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go see a movie. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends. I'm gonna chat. I'm gonna read up on stuff. I'm gonna go on Twitter, laugh. I'm just going to do every other thing aside from the thing I need to do, so that when I'm coming back, I'm like fresh. I'm refreshed, and I feel a lot better.
But that's always good advice to take, and always good advice to give someone. It doesn't matter what they're working on. If you've reached a wall and you can't see any way of getting over that wall, you're not making any progress. Always step away. It could be for an hour, it could be for 2 weeks. Take a step away, and then when you come back, it's like going on a mental holiday, and you come back and you look at it afresh.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you feel any way? Because I don't know why I shouldn't laugh because it's such a good title. But with Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow, did you feel any way about writing about the subjects of body image and writing about BBLs? Because I find the whole I was so shocked, right? Because I'll tell you what it is. When you're growing up as a black girl, black woman, with your Caribbean or African background, the whole like body aesthetic is around, like, we've always been told, oh, you got big bums. Like that's what you grow up hearing. But then growing up, when you're looking at the media, especially when you live in the West, I suppose, when you're looking at media, looking at magazines and stuff, that wasn't the desired body shape. Like being curvy wasn't a desired body shape. And then fast forward to now, when BBLs are a thing. And the first time I realised that, I was so shocked. I remember seeing this woman, I was with a friend, and I just thought that was her natural body shape, like just very curvy. And I just thought, oh, well, that's how nature made her. And my friend was like, no, Nadine, no. She's had a BBL, a Brazilian butt lift. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, what they do? They take out fat somewhere and they inject the fat to give her that. That's not natural. And then you realise that is what people do. And it annoys me that, as I do criminal law, I shouldn't be naive to things, but I was naive to people doing this to their bodies. So did you feel any way about writing about that subject? Or does it surprise you, like in our communities, that people they change their shapes in that way?
I didn't feel anyway. I live in Nigeria, partly, and to be fair, this is the community where people have fake butts everywhere. So it would have been weird. I don't know how people are so shocked by bumbum, like the book. So I call it Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow. I've abbreviated it. My editors called it bumbum through edits, and then it just stuck.
Yeah.
I don't know why people are shocked by bumbum, because we walk out of the house and 5 girls down the street have fake butts. So what did you think I was going to write about? I'm as a writer, I'm here to hold the mirror to society. That's what I'm just here to do. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to tell you it's wrong to do that. But I'm here to say, hey, look, this is what's happening. Make of it what you will. That's my job. I'm not here to do anything else. I'm not going to be, but I will say what it is. And if that shocks you, then I'm sorry. Then maybe you need to look into the society you're living in, because that's what's happening. I'm not writing from the blues. So I didn't feel any way. I felt very comfortable. But like I said, when it was announced, I was dragged online. So I just
What were you? Why were you dragged online for it?
I think so first of all, it went viral, had like 1 million impressions. People started dragging me.
What, because of the title? Before the books even come out?
Before they read the book. Just the title. So I didn't even know it had gone viral. It was a friend of mine who sent me a tweet and said, "Oh, congratulations on your new book." I said, "Huh?" So and then I went back on Twitter and I saw, and then I read the first 4 or 5 comments. They were not very nice. I said, "Oh, this."
What were they saying?
Oh God!
Because when I was talking, when I'm talking about BB, I'm saying this is just my first
Yeah.
when I first learned that people were doing this to their bodies. Because growing up, I said, when you grow up in Caribbean households and African households, if a woman has a big bump, that's just how we're designed. That was always just my mindset. And I grew up always wanting to cover mine because that's not what you see in the magazine. But obviously, society changes, body image changes. And then, as you're saying, you can walk out the front door and there's 5 women that all had BBLs. In me, it's like I have to take the blinkers on to realize, oh, this is what people are actually doing to their bodies. But you do you. Just be careful with what you're doing. So why would people? Because that's what they're doing. They're taking offense because you've chosen to write about what you see every day and make a story. And that's what we do as writers.
Well, I don't know. They are offended and they will be fine. I always tell people, you don't know my house address. If you know where to find me, is where you can come and tell me what you think personally. You can only write to me online or via email or send me an Instagram message. And once you do that, it's also on me to delete it or ignore. So I don't really let those things. I mean, they can be a bit annoying because when you have interviews or when you have, I don't know if it's even annoying. Like they can be a bit amusing because why are you so comfortable telling me exactly what you think about me to my face when you requested to meet with me? But I guess that's also the audacity of people. But I don't let it bother me as much. It can be off-putting, but I don't let it get to me so much.
I mean, it's good that you don't, obviously, because you shouldn't let it get to you, because they're just keyboard warriors, people just getting carried away in front of their phones and just feeling like they have permission and the space to say what they want. But what I'm trying to get at, were they offended by the fact that you decided to write about? I mean, for God's sake, it's BBLs. Was that what they were getting taken offense at? Or the fact that you're talking about it in Nigeria?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't. So what I mean by I don't know what context is, what make them angry is because I don't stay enough to find out what your problem is. I see a negative tweet, I move on. I do know that after the book came out, a couple of people who had dragged me now came to say, oh, so the book is just that I judged the book too quickly by its cover. It's actually talking about body dysmorphia. I'm like, what did you think it was going to be talking about? It's titled.
That's what I'm trying to get. What did they think? What did they think it was going? You were going to be right. It's about I'm trying to get. What were they taking offense to from the title? What did they think you was going to be writing about? Like saying you should. Sorry, go on.
Maybe they thought I was gonna say bumbum. That's really what matters. I'm being sarcastic. Of course, it's not only big bumbum that matters tomorrow. Of course not. So I think maybe people just thought I was propagating or pushing this thing with my platform to say bumbum matters. No, what matters is what's inside. What matters is who you are, what you have to offer. Your looks should play the least role in the reason why anybody should want to be with you. Your look should be what you have to offer should be the list. It's who you are. Are you a kind person? Are you good? Are you fair? Are you empathetic? Do you care about people? Before you start worrying about what the person looks like. So I guess people didn't get that.
No, what they got from the title. You're not the first one it's happened to. And you probably won't be the last one it's happened to. Well, it will happen to. But they read the title, Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow. And this is what I'm getting. They just assume that your book is going to be about promoting surgery, promoting changing your body image in order to fit in. And I say fit in quotes. That's what they thought before the book had even come out. And I said, you're not the first one, because I cannot remember her name for the life of me now. There was an author last year, and she got a really good book deal, like really big advance on the book. And then the book cover came out, people had no problem. Then they read the blurb, and then they had an absolute problems. They went on Goodreads. Well, I can't remember what they call it now. When they review bombed her on Goodreads. The book hadn't even come out yet. You hadn't even read the book. Just based on the small, tiny bit of blurb that they've read. And the thing is, if you then read that was the US blurb. If you then read the UK blurb was completely different. and you would not have jumped to the conclusions that they did after reading the US blip. But I say you're not going to be the first, you're not going to be the last, because sometimes people just want to make a name for themselves, so they jump on something, anything, and they start, well, I was going to say, tweeting about it and posting about it and doing whatnot about it.
I mean, it is what it is. You just said it. It's what it is. I don't really let it bother me as much. It's not. I'm on social media to promote my work, and then I get off. That's it.
Yeah, get off. I think that's the way you have to deal with it. I'm like, you get in and get out. Do what you need to do, and then you just keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because I think social media, you can get so caught up in it, and you get so caught up in the likes and the comments, and it's being shared. Are there people talking? And are my followers growing? And you can get so caught up in that side of it that you end up not paying as much attention to the thing that you should be doing, which is just improving your craft, writing your books, and then moving on to the next one. And then and also engaging with the people who actually want to engage with you because they have genuine intention, which is because they like your work, they like you, and they just want to know more about what you're doing next.
Yeah, that's it. You said it. That's exactly what it is.
So what are you working on next?
Oh, I can't talk about it. NDA. I'm strictly locked by my publishers. I can't even.
Are you really?
I can't mutter a word. It's like,
are you serious?
It's like, no, I can't actually. I cannot. I don't. That's why most times I don't have control over announcements and all of those things. I just know when it comes out. So they make an announcement. They do this whole Publishers Weekly thing. You know how it goes, and then I don't know. I can't really say, but I do know that it's meant to come out when, I guess, next year. Hopefully it should be out next year. When next year, I have no idea.
Are you okay with that? Are you okay with not having that control?
As long as my story doesn't change, I don't really care. I'm fine. Like the way I work is, I think that there's a team for a reason. So everybody handle what you're supposed to handle. My job as the writer is to tell the story and to ensure that the story is told the way I want to see it told. Now, when it comes out, how it comes out, I know it's coming out next year. When it decides to come out next year, it's not my headache. Maybe because I also don't want you to give me the work that is not mine. So, and locking me under an NDA to say not to say stuff is fine. It's okay. It will come out when it comes out, and when it comes out, then people can have access to it. Okay,
so this question's for you. What piece of advice do you wish you'd been told earlier in your career as a writer, not as an actor? Do both. Both as an actor, as a writer. What piece of advice do you wish you'd been told earlier in your career?
I've been very blessed as a writer to have people tell me the right things when I started, because I was attached to a guy whose head is in the right place. So he gave me all the advice, and so I don't really think, but as an actor, I wish people had told me that it starts and it ends with God. I wish somebody had told me that it starts and it ends.
What were you doing before you realised that it stopped and started with God?
I wasn't doing it with God. I was involving God after. I didn't start it with God. That's the only thing I regret, and I hardly have regrets. I wish I started my journey as an actor professionally with God. I wish I'd asked him, what is the way forward? It would have saved me a lot of stress. Yeah. So I was doing a lot of things impulsively. I wasn't asking.
I think sometimes it's about putting your faith in something bigger than you. Whatever that may be, whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe, or whether you just call it Mother Earth, I don't know. But it's I call it God. I know, but I'm saying for everyone else out there in the world. But I think sometimes it's about putting your faith in something bigger than you. Because sometimes you can't see the full picture that you have for yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you can't see it, you go within yourself and you're like, okay, I can't do this. This is not the right way for me, because you can't see it. And sometimes it's not really for you to see. You have to put your faith in something bigger.
Yeah.
And then it all opens up to you. Okay, so Damilare, your questions. Are you an introvert or extrovert or a hybrid of the two?
Hybrid of both.
You're a hybrid. What challenge or experience in your life shaped you the most?
What experience so far?
Yeah, it could be good or bad. So challenge or experience.
Oh my, the writing experience has moved me to my core, because my entire journey, it's almost like I'm watching a movie. So yeah.
And if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Just take a breather and let God direct you. God, I can't tell you how much I wish I started my entire life with God. Like I did. I grew up as a Christian. But to know God on this level, I didn't have that until later. So yeah. Oh no, I would have said that. Don't bother yourself. I could have the things I've gotten into, the things I've wasted my time on. God would have saved me that energy. It might not be easy, because again, if God shows you the journey, you want to run away. But guess what? He would have been there, and he's been there, but I would have involved him more. So 25 years old me said, calm down, do it with God.
I always think 25 is such an interesting age, because you feel like you should be an adult, and you feel like you should be where you envisioned yourself to be. Everything should be set. But I'm just saying a figure. 95% of us, that is not the case. You get to 25 and you're like, what? Why did this happen the way I thought it was going to be?
Yeah.
Why am I still living at home? Why am I doing this? Why has this happened? And you make weird decisions. And also as well, you think at 25, you're going to live forever. Like there's no concept of being 40 at some point, or 50. You're just dealing with the here and now. Maybe that's not even necessarily like a bad way to be, but that is where your head's at, I think, when you're 25. And then when you look back, you're like, oh no, I don't know anything.
Well, because I'm also still pretty young, I think maybe, yeah, you're right. I'm one of those people that I'm not scared to, how people like, oh my God, I'm scared to get old. No, I feel like when you get to life at 40, life at 50, life at mid 30s, you carry experiences along with you as you clock these ages and these stages. So, and it makes it all very interesting. But yeah, you're right about the whole the experience at 25 and the things you imagine your life will look like, even though I never had a plan. I told you I don't.
But I also, as much of a planner as I am in terms of writing books, I think it's okay not to have a plan, like in life. Sometimes it's all about just letting it all flow and just seeing where it goes, which is why when it comes to university, I was talking to one of my younger cousins. I'm saying you don't need to go to university and know, like, when I graduate, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. I said, sometimes university can just be about having that experience. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather you just spend 3 or 4 years studying something you enjoy. And then when you graduate, you can always then make that next step and make that decision about what you want to study next. I don't feel you should feel a pressure at uni to be whatever you're locked into whatever you choose to study.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
What would you tell the listeners of the conversation what Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow is about? And basically, I'm making you do the elevator pitch, which is really horrible, but what?
Okay. This is a book that talks about a girl who decides that the moment she fixes her bum, her life is going to get better. And we all have that moment in our life where we're like, when I have this amount of money, then I can be happy. When I marry, then my life will get better. When I get that job. Meanwhile, your life is happening to you right now. And living in that moment instead of expecting for something to happen to you, then everything will fall into place. So that's what the book is about. It's telling us to stop waiting for something. And that it's not what you can offer the world that will make the world easier for you. It's how you make the world work for you that makes the world easier for you.
That's a good pitch. I like that. So finally, Damilare, where can listeners of the conversation find you online?
I'm on Instagram, Damilare Kuku. I'm on Twitter, the same name, Damilare Kuku. I'm on TikTok, Damilare Kuku. So you can find me on all the platforms with the same name, DAMILAREKUKU, Damilare Kuku.
Oh, so that just leaves me to say, Damilare Kuku, thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.